Alright, hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. This is Rob here at Smirking Gun Reviews. Back to talk more Better Call Saul Season 5. We're on Episode 5. It is called Dedicado a Max. And so let's just jump right into this, because for a 50-minute episode, this is pretty tight and contained. We've only got a couple of plot lines going here, which is Mike on this little ranch out in the middle of nowhere, and Kim and Jimmy's little plan against Kevin and Mesa Verde. But they sure do jam in a lot of stuff. This is a lot of character stuff. And just like episode 4, this is a lot of slowly leading the plot to where it's going to end in the last 2 or 3 episodes. So by, I would say, episode 6 or 7, we'll start to see a lot of things happen because of the choices that are being made here. But first off, let's just talk about Mike's part of the story, right? So Mike has been in a really bad place ever since he killed Werner. Killing Werner just keeps solidifying what a bad person Mike is and how he sees himself. He sees himself. He knows who he is. He knows what he is. His only thing good in his life is his granddaughter and maybe his relationship to his, to her mother a little bit. It's the only things really tying him to the rest of the world. Otherwise, what is he? Who is he? Why go on? And when he killed Werner, a guy who just wanted to see his wife because he was in danger to the job that he was hired to do, it hasn't been sitting well with him, and it's taken him down a dark path, which it would. If it doesn't, you're a complete psychopath. And that's what makes Mike such an interesting person, is he's a bad person. He knows it. He owns it. And that's one of the things, is he's a villain who knows he's a villain. I've said this before. Everybody else kind of believes that they're heroes. I was thinking about a commenter recently who I reviewed the show Succession back in 2018, and I just got a comment a couple weeks ago, somebody saying that saying kind of what I've said about a lot of villains think they're heroes, kind of like you. He basically called me a villain because he thought I didn't like the show Succession. Yeah. So, but all the other characters here don't see themselves, like Gustavo Fring. He doesn't see himself as a villain. And I guess the word villain is you kind of got to be careful like that, because I don't see Jimmy as a villain. I see him as more of a self-destructive personality, and how that spreads a little bit to people like Kim, and maybe even Howard to it, eventually. Who knows? But Mike knows who he is, and after he takes his beating and punishment, which I feel like he knew the second time he went that he was not going to get out of there. Maybe he wanted to be put down. Maybe he thought that was a way that he should go out, is just beaten down in the street by a bunch of guys like him. But he wakes up in the middle of nowhere and, immediately does the Mike thing. Gets up. Thank you very much. Where am I? Is this Gustavo Fring? I love it when he brings him up, too, how he says, is this Fring? Gustavo Fring, he is not happy. And he leaves. I think it feels like he's being controlled. That somebody's trying to push him where he wants to go. And Mike's not that way. So he just leaves. And I love the little car that finally comes for him. And it's Fring's doctor from Breaking Bad that we've seen before. And he takes him back. And what we end up seeing is that fountain in the middle of this little place that Fring kind of keeps separate from his business. It's a memorial, as he says at the end, and you see the Dedicado a Max. Now, let's just say it, because for anybody who hasn't watched Breaking Bad, spoilers, but Max was his partner. And at the time watching that, and even on one of my reviews recently, I actually did think they were brothers, but I think they really were boyfriends. I think they were. I think it's starting to look that way. Now, I know Fring had a family, but a lot of gay guys have families, so at some point, or in Fring's life, I think it was necessary to have a family after the fact, like once that guy died and everything else. But who knows? Maybe they really were brothers. I don't think we've ever really fully established Fring's backstory, which makes him even more interesting. But when Hector Salamanca killed his partner Max, they were the guys in it together. They were the Chicken Brothers. They were Los Pollos Hermanos. And once that ended, so I'm thinking that this is where he came from, and that's probably why I should have seen a long time ago that brothers, because Fring comes from, like, I think El Salvador or Chile, something like that. So this place is basically a safe place that Fring has made, like, untouched, protected. There's people around there making sure that nobody gets into this little area where people are safe. I really dig that. And so this is where he's chosen to put Mike, to kind of force Mike to face himself, to how did I put it as I wrote it down? Save him from himself. That if he just kept going the way he's going, estranged from his family, drinking, fighting, there's only one way that ends, and that's you die. By someone's hand or your own. Or you die drunk in a ditch somewhere. And Fring is trying to build him back up to make him the soldier that he wants. Now that, again, Fring respects Mike. Mike is, since he's an ex-cop, he still has that thing where, he knows drug dealers, he knows bad guys, he as still one of those guys. But Gustavo says more. He's like, you see more than that. I'm different. I am different than those guys. You know what they are. These people that I work with. These people that I plan on taking out. So in this, like, we see, like, if you watch Breaking Bad, you don't see the revenge plot coming right away. And, that he hates Hector Salamanca, but you didn't really get much until you watched a lot more Breaking Bad, the plan to take out everybody in that cartel, the leadership anyway. This is him basically laying it out to Mike what he wants, which is revenge. And so he says that's something that Mike understands. And if you think about it, he's trying to basically say to him, the reason Werner died is because of these people, like, that I work for. If I probably could have, like, let this guy live. But I also think that that's a line of bullshit, that he even can convince himself sometimes that he means those things when he would have killed Werner anyway, I think. But maybe I'm wrong on that. Maybe, it's just fancy writing. But through the course of his stay, Mike, pardon me, don't worry, I'm not, I just had donated plasma and they took my temperature, so I'm good. See, I even donated. I just got a little tickle in my throat because I've been talking a lot. So by having Mike there, he gets to, holy crap, I gotta, like, take a drink of water. All right, that's better. So Mike has a chance to relax, and the thing is he never really completely relaxes. I love how he's trying to get an international phone call out, and it won't work, and so he's jerry-rigging his phone to make the battery, like the ability to call on his phone stronger to the phone line that they have. And she just hands him, the lady that runs the, works there or lives there, she hands him a phone charger. I love that. We're getting that whole kind of very intricate Breaking Bad kind of thing that we see a lot of times with people, doing really interesting things, to make something work. Science, bitches. So, and he just gets the phone charger and calls Fring himself. But he tells him, it's not the right time, and just hangs up on him. And that really irks Mike. I almost think that even Fring knows how to push Mike's buttons by doing things like that. So by the end, when they do talk about, what they talk about, Mike is in a better place. He's helped out the place. He's still wary and leery of Fring, but they're coming back to a point where they can maybe trust each other to do what, like, Mike's still in it for helping out his granddaughter, for helping out his daughter-in-law, but he also figures, well, I can help take out some bad guys, because yeah, Mike doesn't want to just be some button man for Fring. And just again, before we get on to anything else, Jonathan Banks and Giancarlo Esposito, man, just, except for the fact that, like, if you look at episodes of Breaking Bad, his Fring Esposito's hair is a little different. Otherwise, they both have stepped right out of the show, and they're still so fantastic together. And I love just getting all that extra background on these characters that we know ultimately their fates in Breaking Bad. It's just nice to have more context so that when you do watch Breaking Bad, they're still bad guys. They still get what they deserve. Everybody gets what they deserve in the Breaking Bad universe, really, for the most part. But it's just nice to see them more fleshed out. This is like what I was talking about with somebody about when we were talking about Doctor Sleep. With D from D's Reviews, we were talking, had a little discussion back and forth on Twitter about how that show their villains would have been better played if it had been like a Netflix series where you could have gotten more character work out of them and fleshed them out. It's hard to have bad guys you want to have more bad guys that have, like, you understand their motivations other than just being like a 90s bad guy in a Michael Bay movie. Do you know what I'm saying? So let's move on to the second story in here, which is Kim and her secret fight against Mesa Verde to help out Acker and blow up the plans of Kevin from Mesa Verde's call, was that a call place? Call Central Comms or Call? I don't know. It's a place for the bank. Anyway, so the episode starts with them trying to knock down Mr. Acker's home. At 12, they say it's 11:30 Arroyo Vista, but he says it's 12:40 Arroyo Vista. I love this guy. It's always been 12:40, and the way to get him on board to have a lawyer was just to tell him, we're gonna fuck with Mesa Verde nonstop until we win. And you can tell that Mr. Acker's that kind of guy that would take pleasure just in the fight. I mean, I know Jimmy's telling him that we're going to win, but I think that Mr. Acker's one of those guys that by the end would also be just happy to know that he's been sticking it to these millionaires. They're trying to kick him off his land. So Jimmy's basically doing all these scams, making it look like Mr. Acker's doing it. Everybody seems to think that Mr. Acker's doing it. And this, right here, this was awesome. Okay, this definitely felt like a nod to Breaking Bad. With, like, we would see those above views of Walter and Jesse cooking meth. I feel like that right there was supposed to be, like, Jimmy's way of cooking meth by scheming for his clients. And so, they got the missing house numbers, and over again, they are trying to get this house torn down, and over again, Jimmy has a new way to stop them. Whether it's the best one, I think, is the ground up batteries from the smoke detectors that give off low level radiation. You've got the New Mexico Cultural Properties Act, where they're looking for artifacts from, like, ancient times on the property, suing on behalf of the water district, and so on. Oh, and the bringing all the tourists to see the Jesus on the side of the fence. I mean, this definitely took place back then, where people were always claiming to see Jesus in a grilled cheese. So this is all done to try to force Mesa Verde to just give up, that this is costing them time and money, and like they could have had this all done if they had just gone with Kim's original plan, which was take it from another site. But Kevin, like the cops and everybody else, they don't see that this is Jimmy doing this, that she got Jimmy to do this. Like, Kevin's blind. He thinks that this is all Mr. Acker and not her. that started all this. She brought Jimmy in. She gets what Jimmy can do. And even though there are times in this episode that Kim starts, you can just tell she's questioning her own decision on how she's handling this. She keeps pressing forward. Every time, even Jimmy gives her outs. He tells her, we've pushed this as far as we can go. There's if we go any further, he says, nasty, personal, and dangerous. And he means it. Because the only other way to go is to go after Kevin from Mesa Verde directly. Because Kevin won't budge. In fact, he doubles down. And that makes Kim double down. Because Kevin's the kind of guy who gets what he wants always. I don't know how long that's been for this guy. Maybe he really was like one of these self-made people, but at the point that he's at now, he is not the guy you say no to. He's not used to being told no. He's not used to not getting his way. And so from hell or high water, he's getting his own way. And so she decides to go after him. And the thing about this is this is probably her headed towards her downfall. Even though I really like this scene behind us where they improv Jimmy being her and her being Kevin. She really starts to get into it after a while. I love it. But see, if this goes bad, and it's probably going to go bad at some point, it's going to go bad worse for Kim. Because, see, Jimmy's just being a lawyer, and nobody can really prove that he's doing anything. But she created this whole situation, and if it gets back to anybody that she did this, professionally, she could be ruined. Jimmy could, and this would ruin her not just professionally, but personally. She would take it very hard that she lost. But Jimmy, see, he can take the heat. So, it just, I don't know. But when they decide to go after Kevin, they first call Mike to see if he can do legit PI work, which is foreshadowing to what Mike does for people like Saul and Jimmy later on in Breaking Bad. But instead, they get the second choice, which I really liked seeing Steve Agee back as this guy that they're calling Mr. X. I first went, Trevor from GTA 5, but also, Negan's right-hand man in The Walking Dead. And now he was also really funny in the episode of Better Call Saul that he was in a few years back, where he played a guy that was one of the guys hired by our little pharmaceutical rep to to deal with Nacho. And he's the guy, he got the gun taken from him by Mike. Well, in this he calls him Mr. X. And again, I don't know if this was a nod to Vince Gilligan's work on the X-Files, because there was a character there who was Mr. Man of Mystery with all the secret information called X, played by Stephen Williams. I don't know if that's true, but it feels like this episode's got a lot of nods. Like the Dedicado to Amex is a nod to Breaking Bad Season 4, Episode 8, I think, called Hermanos. Then you've got the scene with the tea, that's a nod to Breaking Bad. And then Mr. X definitely feels like a nod to Stephen Williams on X-Files. But they test, they go, and what I like about this is that his character earlier on in Better Call Saul was more of a guns first, but when he got hired to do this PI work, he actually seemed to be all right at it. He actually seemed to be pretty confident, up until the point that Kim finds out that he's like, oh, you broke into his house? Like, again, giving her pause to how far they're taking this. So he allays her fears by, look, he didn't break in, but he caused a situation so that he'd be allowed to enter by making a problem for the guy. He fired an air rifle, a BB gun, into the window sensor of his alarm, which caused problems, which had him come up pretending to be an alarm specialist and being let in and given the run of the house. And basically he finds nothing. He's like, this guy's an Eagle Scout. He's boring. He's dull. I love how he's talking about this. And he's trying to be very professional. Oh, you want like details. Okay, here's this folder. Here's this folder. Here are these pictures. Even though in the folders they're just pictures with a clip on them. It's him trying to be professional. Until he says, well, hey, I know some other guys, and we could just put a bag over his head and take him out to the desert, and then you get what you want. That's the character that we knew from like season 1. But in the end, Kim sees something in the pictures. There's 2 pictures she grabs that of Kevin's that are going to play into something. She sees something there. She's getting some kind of information from that she's going to work. But before that can even happen, while Kevin may not see what's going on, Rich, the guy from Copeland, right? I think this is the law firm that she works at. He does see the scam. He doesn't want to say it, and again, it's such good writing. Like the guy just, and like again, this guy's played beautifully by the guy who I remember from all the way back to Crocodile Dundee 2. Yeah, that's, and he doesn't really look like he's aged that much either. He's really great in this. He's trying to protect her from herself. A lot of people in this episode are trying to protect each other from themselves. Like Mike, Gus, and Mike, and Rich here for Kim. Trying to tell her, look, why don't you take a break because I know what you're doing. It just so happens that Jimmy came on this case. We know about Jimmy. He's trying to say all this without saying it, and she forces him. Almost like somebody who just wants to get caught. Like she just wants it to be over so that she can either blow up her whole lawyer career or be forced to just be like Jimmy and work for herself, which I think is what she really wants in the end. I think she climbed the corporate ladder, she got where she wanted, and she realizes she doesn't like what she sees. And she'd rather be helping people on the lower end, but she doesn't know how to just quit. And I feel like she's self-sabotaging in a way where she keeps succeeding. Jimmy's way is working. And that also I don't think is sitting well with her. To the point where she's going to take more chances. And maybe she will get disbarred. I don't know. But he tries to help her and she doesn't take the advice. And that's basically the end of the stories. And it's a really good episode. It's a really good episode. A lot of character stuff. Like I said, the plot doesn't really... we're just getting more and more choices as we'll start snowballing towards the end of the season. I don't know how many episodes are in the season. I hope there's 10. I hope there's at least 10. So that means we are at the halfway point. So, fantastic episode. Rhea Seehorn is such a good actress. Everybody in this show, we could talk about this every single episode. The writing's good, the directing's good, the acting's good, the cinematography is good. Everything about this show is great. I still don't think I would go so far as to say this is better than Breaking Bad. I say it's on the same par. This is from the same people, and I don't like making those comparisons between it because it is one long story. This is just called a different name. How do you say the one really is better than the other when it's all part of one big thing? I guess since this is a prequel, you could say that these are prequels. Like if this was the Star Wars prequels, you know what I mean? Like I wish the Star Wars prequels were as good as this prequel. You know what I'm saying? So sometimes some things can be as good as the original, and I do think that there are definitely some aspects that are... This show is funnier than Breaking Bad. Breaking Bad had a lot of funny moments, a lot of great moments, but I think consistently this show is funnier, but it's always had a lighter touch. And Breaking Bad's had a much darker touch and made funny things out of very dark material. It does that to a lesser extent. And I'll always take this whole thing as a whole. I will never try to just separate the two and say, I'm in the Better Call Saul camp more than I am in the Breaking Bad camp. I am not going to choose between my kids, man. This is not going to be like Sophie's Choice for me. All right, I'll take the bullet myself before I pick one of the kids. So, I don't know. I'm rambling now. So anyway, if you like this review, please hit the like button, comment, share, subscribe, hit the bell for all notifications. Otherwise, you can find me on Twitter at reviews_gun. This is Rob saying we'll be back next week for more Better Call Saul. Bye.